My boyfriend thought he could date other women and still come home to me. He couldn't have been more wrong. My name is Natalie Carter. I'm 27 years old, and I'm writing this down because part of me still can't believe how quickly 3 years of my life came apart. There was no screaming match, no confession I had to drag out of him, not even an apology. It ended on a Wednesday night, with my boyfriend sitting beside me on my couch and calmly explaining that he had already started dating other women. Ethan Brooks was 28. We had been together for 3 years and had lived in my apartment for the last 18 months. I say my apartment because my name was the only one on the lease. At the time, that felt like an administrative detail. Later, it became the reason I could reclaim my life without begging him to leave it. For several weeks, Ethan had been distant. He stayed later at work, kept his phone face down whenever I entered the room, and started taking showers the second he came home. Whenever I asked whether something was wrong, he blamed stress. My manager's pushing everyone too hard. I haven't been sleeping. I just need some time to clear my head. I believed him because loving someone for 3 years teaches you how to explain away the things that should make you nervous. That Wednesday, we were sitting on the couch after dinner. Some forgettable comedy played on television, but Ethan hadn't laughed once. He kept running his thumb along the edge of his phone. Eventually, he reached for the remote and turned off the screen. "Babe, we need to talk." My stomach tightened. "What happened?" "Nothing happened." He leaned forward, rested his elbows on his knees, and focused on the floor. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about us, about life, about what I want." I waited. "I think we should see other people." The words took a second to register. "See other people?" "We're still young, Natalie. I don't want either of us waking up 10 years from now wondering whether we missed something." Did I say I felt like I was missing something? No, but this isn't about blame. That answer chilled me more than the suggestion itself. He spoke as if we had arrived at this decision together, as if he were freeing both of us from a problem we had discussed and agreed upon. "We've been together for 3 years, I said. "You don't think this is something you should have mentioned before tonight?" "I'm mentioning it now." "No, you're announcing it now." His jaw tightened. Then he offered what he clearly believed was proof of his honesty. "I didn't want to lie to you, so I should probably tell you I've already gone on a couple of dates." The room seemed to narrow around us. "A couple of dates?" "Nothing serious." "With who?" "That doesn't matter. It matters to me. It was just coffee and drinks. I wanted to know how it felt before bringing this up." That sentence changed the way I saw him. He hadn't come to me because he was struggling with a decision. He had tested another life first. Only after confirming that other women would meet him had he returned to my apartment and offered me a place inside the arrangement he had already created. "You went on dates behind my back." "I wouldn't call it cheating." "What would you call it?" "Exploring." He said it so confidently I almost laughed. Instead, I took in the room around us. The couch I had paid for, the framed photographs I had hung, the coffee table Ethan had promised to assemble and left unfinished until I did it myself. His shoes were beside my front door. His game controller rested on my rug. His jacket hung over the dining chair he never pushed back in. He expected to date other women while continuing to come home to the life I maintained. He wanted single freedom with relationship-level comfort. "I just wanted to be honest," he said. Honest. He offered the word as if confessing afterward transformed betrayal into integrity. I folded my hands in my lap. "Okay." His eyebrows rose. "Okay? Thank you for telling me." Relief spread across his face. "See? This is why you're the best. You're so chill. I knew you'd understand." I didn't understand. I simply saw the ending before he did. He had already walked away from the relationship. He just expected me to remain available while he decided whether he wanted to return. Ethan reached for the remote. "So, we're good? We're clear." He smiled as though those words meant the same thing. They didn't. He restarted the show and laughed at something on the screen while I studied the man I had planned a future with. For months, I had wondered why he no longer wanted to attend anything with me. The charity gala my friend had invited us to. The winery tour for my birthday. The mountain hike I had trained for all spring. He called the gala pretentious, said the winery would give him a headache, referred to hiking as pointless cardio. I had attended all 3 without him, then somehow apologized for being disappointed. That night, I stopped apologizing. "I'm tired," I said. "I'm going to bed." He barely glanced away from the television. "Okay, love you." A month earlier, those words would have reassured me. That night, they sounded automatic. I walked down the hallway but past our bedroom and went into the spare room instead. My old Hinge account was still deactivated on my phone. I stared at the icon before opening it. There were photographs of Ethan and me everywhere. At Christmas, on the beach, and outside the restaurant where we celebrated our 2nd anniversary. I deleted them one at a time. Then I replaced them. The first was from the Arts for Kids gala. I wore a dark blue dress and silver heels, smiling beneath strings of warm lights while a live band played behind me. Ethan had refused to go. The second was from the winery tour. I was laughing with 2 friends, holding a glass of red wine under the afternoon sun. Ethan had canceled that morning. The final picture became my main profile photo. It showed me standing alone at the summit of a mountain, wind pulling loose strands of hair across my face, both arms raised over my head. I remembered how alive I felt when it was taken. I hadn't felt that way beside Ethan in months. For my bio, I wrote, "Recently single and rediscovering everything I've been missing. Looking for someone who enjoys the journey, whether it's a mountain, a crowded dance floor, or a quiet Sunday morning." I read it twice, then reactivated the profile. The first message arrived less than 10 minutes later. I didn't answer right away. I sat in the spare room listening to Ethan laugh at his game down the hall. Later, he passed the doorway and noticed my phone. "Setting up a date already?" he asked with a smirk. His tone made it sound like we were playing some harmless game. "Just updating a few things." That was fast. He chuckled and walked away without asking what I had changed. He thought he had opened our relationship. What he had actually done was close the door on us, and without realizing it, he had handed me the key to leave. 2 weeks later, Ethan's experiment began falling apart. Mine had barely started. The first few days after reactivating Hinge felt strange. I wasn't used to introducing myself without automatically mentioning him. For 3 years, nearly every story I told had included Ethan somewhere. Nearly every memory came with a we. Restaurants we had tried, shows we had watched, and trips we had talked about taking. Now there was no we. There was only me, and I had almost forgotten how much of a person I had been before our relationship became the center of everything. My profile received more attention than I expected. Some messages were forgettable, a few were painfully awkward. Several came from men who had clearly read what I wrote. One asked about the trail in my summit photo. Another recognized the winery. Someone else said the charity gala looked like the kind of event he would have enjoyed. That stayed with me. Ethan had treated the things I loved as obligations he occasionally tolerated. Over time, I had learned to lower my excitement before sharing plans because I could already hear his response. Too crowded, too expensive, too far, too boring, too pretentious. Now, strangers were seeing those same experiences and finding reasons to talk to me. I agreed to coffee with a man named Lucas Reed. He was 29, worked in graphic design, and had filled his profile with awful jokes that were somehow charming because he knew they were awful. We met at a small downtown cafe on Saturday afternoon. I nearly canceled while getting dressed. Then again while sitting in my car outside. Going on a date felt wrong while Ethan's clothes still hung beside mine. Then I remembered that he had gone on multiple dates before giving me the courtesy of knowing our relationship had changed. I went inside. Lucas stood when he saw me. "Natalie? That depends. Are you the man who claims cereal is technically soup?" He placed one hand over his heart. "I see you came prepared to attack my beliefs." I laughed. The conversation lasted almost 2 hours. There were no sparks or sweeping moments. I didn't leave imagining a future with him. But it was pleasant, easy. He asked questions and waited for the answers. When I mentioned the mountain hike, he didn't mock it. He wanted to know how long the climb had taken. When we parted, he smiled. "I had a good time, no pressure, but I'd be happy to do this again." Later that evening, he texted to make sure I had arrived home safely. We exchanged a few friendly messages afterward, but neither of us pretended there was more chemistry than there actually was. It was a small kindness, but it made me realize how little I had been accepting from Ethan. The real turning point came 3 days later. A man named Daniel Hayes sent me a message. His profile said he was 30, worked in commercial architecture, and spent most weekends trying to stop his golden retriever from diving into every body of water he saw. His opening line read, "Was that the Arts for Kids Gala? My company sponsored a table. That band was incredible, although I'm pretty sure the drummer forgot which song they were playing halfway through." I opened the photograph again. Several feet behind me, Daniel stood with a group of people, laughing near one of the decorated tables. I wrote back, "You're actually in the background of my picture." His response came almost immediately. "So technically, we've already attended one event together. This second conversation is moving very quickly." We kept messaging. Daniel was funny without working too hard at it. He remembered details and didn't turn every conversation back toward himself. He also admitted he had spilled red wine on his own shirt at the gala and spent half the evening hiding his tie over the stain. When I mentioned Ethan had refused to attend because he thought charity events were pretentious, Daniel replied, "Trying too hard to appear generous can be pretentious. Raising money for children's arts programs isn't." Something shifted then. I didn't trust him yet, and it certainly wasn't love, but I felt understood. I had spent so long defending what I enjoyed that hearing someone understand it without explanation felt unexpectedly intimate. Daniel and I made plans to meet for drinks on Thursday. Meanwhile, Ethan's experiment began costing him more than he had planned. He never told me much about the woman he was seeing, but his mood changed. He came home irritated, checked his phone constantly, and paced the hallway during whispered conversations. One night I heard him say, "I told you it's complicated." A gap. "No, we're not together." Another gap. "I live there because moving out immediately doesn't make financial sense." There it was. He was presenting himself as single while continuing to live in my apartment. Apparently, the woman he had been seeing wasn't impressed. The next morning, he slammed cabinet doors while searching for coffee. Everything okay? I asked. Fine. You seem upset. I said I'm fine. I left him to it. His bad mood was no longer mine to manage. On Thursday evening, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, curling my hair before meeting Daniel. I wore a fitted black dress and the earrings Ethan once said were too formal for just drinks. He appeared in the doorway and took in the outfit. You're going out again? Yes. That's like your third date in 2 weeks. Is it? With the same guy? Does it matter? I'm just asking. I returned my attention to the mirror. Who is he? A friend. A friend you met on Hinge? I caught his reflection. You wanted us to see other people. I know what I said. Then why are you counting my dates? He crossed his arms. I've been thinking, and I'm over this. I lowered the curling iron. Over what? This whole seeing other people thing. He said it as casually as if he were canceling a subscription. I gave it a chance. I figured out what I needed to figure out. And what was that? The familiar, confident smile appeared, the one he used when he expected forgiveness before offering a real apology. I choose you. I waited for him to continue. I know the last couple weeks have been weird, but maybe we needed this. I got it out of my system. Now we can move forward. He gestured toward my phone. So you can delete the app? No. The smile disappeared. What? I'm not going back to being exclusive with you. Natalie, I just told you I choose you. You're saying that like I've been waiting for the result of a competition. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. He exhaled sharply. I was confused. I needed space to understand what I wanted. You didn't ask for space. You dated other women behind my back, then announced the arrangement after it had already started. I told you the truth. After you cheated. I didn't cheat. You can rename it. It still happened. His expression hardened. So that's it? You're throwing away 3 years because I made one mistake? You didn't call it a mistake when you were enjoying it. I admitted I handled it badly. No, the woman you were seeing decided she didn't want to date someone still living with his girlfriend. His eyes narrowed. You don't know anything about that. I heard the phone call. He turned away, which told me enough. The only thing that changed, I said, is that your other option fell apart. That's not fair. What isn't fair is expecting me to celebrate because you came back after someone else rejected the arrangement. I wasn't rejected. Then why are you suddenly finished exploring? He had no answer. I picked up my purse. I'm not your backup plan, Ethan. You're seriously leaving right now? Yes. To meet him? To enjoy my evening. He stepped aside. You'll regret this. You were the one worried about regrets. Then I walked out. My date with Daniel was easy. We talked over drinks for nearly 3 hours. He got us briefly lost looking for the parking garage afterward, laughed at himself, and refused to pretend he had known where he was going. He didn't ask for details about Ethan or push for anything beyond conversation. At my car, he said, I'd like to see you again, but only when you're ready. I believed him. When I returned home, the bedroom door was closed. Ethan had placed a pillow and blanket on the couch. He hadn't asked whether I planned to sleep there. He had simply decided I would be the one displaced in my own apartment. That settled the matter. The next morning, I typed a formal notice. Ethan, since we are no longer in a relationship, our living arrangement must end. My name is the only name on the lease. This letter serves as 30 days' notice that you must remove yourself and all personal belongings from the apartment by July 11th. I printed it, signed it, and left it on the kitchen counter where he always placed his keys. Then I took my laptop to the cafe down the street. At 8:17, my phone began vibrating inside my bag. It stopped, then started again. Calls turned into messages. I let them accumulate. Ethan had treated our relationship like an arrangement he could pause and resume whenever it suited him. Now he was discovering that ending a relationship meant losing more than a girlfriend. It meant losing the home he had mistaken for his. By the time I finished my coffee, Ethan had called 11 times and sent 23 text messages. The first few sounded confused. Where are you? Can we talk before you do something stupid? This isn't funny, Natalie. Then came the defensiveness. You can't seriously expect me to leave. We've built a life together. You're overreacting. The final messages tried guilt. I thought you loved me. You're really going to throw me away after one mistake? I read everyone without replying. For 3 years, I had rushed to resolve every disagreement before it became uncomfortable. This time, I let him sit with the discomfort he had created. Around noon, the messages stopped. I knew that didn't mean he had calmed down. It meant he was changing tactics. I stayed out longer than usual, wandered through a bookstore, bought a novel I had been meaning to read, and took a slow walk through the park before heading home. The apartment was unnaturally still when I unlocked the door. Then I saw why. Ethan wasn't alone. His 2 best friends, Marcus and Ryan, were sitting on my couch. Neither smiled. They wore the solemn expressions of men who had arrived believing they were about to reason with someone cruel. This wasn't a conversation. It was an ambush. Ethan stood. There you are. I set my purse on the kitchen counter. You have company. We need to talk. I figured. Marcus leaned forward. Natalie, come on, this whole 30-day notice thing is crazy. Ryan joined in. Ethan admitted he screwed up. I turned to Ethan. When did that happen? He ignored the question. We're trying to solve this like adults. You announced you were dating other women after you'd already started. You went on dates too. After you ended our relationship. I never said we were breaking up. You didn't have to. Marcus raised both hands. Relationships get messy. Everybody makes mistakes. This wasn't one mistake. It was one bad decision. No, it was a series of choices. They watched me carefully. He downloaded the app, made the profile, matched with women, started conversations, arranged dates, lied about where he was going, went out with them, and came home afterward. I faced Marcus. Which part was accidental? He shifted in his seat. Ethan rubbed his forehead. I was confused. You were curious. That's different. It isn't. His voice rose. I didn't know what I wanted. But you knew you wanted to keep living here. Ryan frowned. That's not fair. Really? He never stopped loving you. If that's what love looks like, I'd rather be alone. Ethan stepped closer. I told you the truth. After everything had already happened. I could have lied. He opened his mouth, then seemed to realize there was no answer that would help him. Marcus stood halfway, then settled back. So you're seriously ending 3 years over this? I'm ending it because he already did. No, Marcus, if your girlfriend told you she had already gone on several dates with other men and planned to continue, would you still call yourselves a couple? His hesitation gave me the answer. Ryan focused on the floor. Ethan muttered, That's different. It's exactly the same. His shoulders dropped. I remembered the relief on his face when I had said okay 2 weeks earlier. He hadn't appeared guilty then. He had seemed pleased with himself. Any sympathy I felt disappeared when I remembered how relieved he had been that night. Marcus got to his feet. Maybe everyone needs time. I've had enough. Ryan followed him. We were only trying to help. I know. They were trying to help the version of Ethan's story they had been given. The tension eased as soon as the door closed behind them. I assumed that would be the worst of it. Instead, Ethan expanded the campaign. Within 2 days, mutual friends began reaching out. Some genuinely wanted to understand. Others had already accepted his version. He says you kicked him out overnight. He says you won't even talk to him. He says you blindsided him. I stopped defending myself and forwarded each person the same screenshot. I think we should see other people. I've already started. That ended almost every conversation. 3 evenings later, my phone rang again. Emily Brooks, Ethan's older sister. I answered. Hi, Emily. Natalie, what are you doing? Her voice carried the outrage before she finished the question. I assume this is about Ethan. I can't believe you're throwing him out. We broke up. You don't abandon someone over one mistake. I disagree. He needs support. He needs somewhere to live. He has 30 days. That's not enough. It has to be. She gave an irritated breath. You're destroying his life. I'm ending my involvement in it. You know he's panicking. I imagine he is. What about all his belongings? They're his responsibility. What about the garage? I stopped. The garage? His Mustang. Everything became clear. She wasn't calling because Ethan was heartbroken. She was calling because he had finally realized what he stood to lose. His unfinished 1968 Ford Mustang. He had spent nearly every weekend for 2 years restoring it. Engine parts covered half the garage shelves. Specialized tools filled expensive cabinets. Boxes of replacement components lined the walls. The single-car garage attached to my apartment had become his private workshop. He had never paid anything to use it, Emily continued. You know he has nowhere else to work on it. She had not asked how I was doing. She had not apologized for what her brother had done. Her concern was whether he would lose free garage space. That was when I stopped feeling guilty about the deadline. Ethan and his family did not expect him to face the consequences of his decisions. They expected me to absorb them. He has until July 11th, I said. Natalie, he can make arrangements. You know restoring that car is his dream. I know. Then how can you do this? Because his dream is his responsibility. You're being unbelievably cold. I'm being realistic. I ended the call. For several minutes, I stood in the kitchen facing the garage door. He had assumed the garage would always be there, the same way he assumed I would. I went into my home office and opened my laptop. If he wanted this treated as a housing issue, rather than the end of a relationship, I would handle it that way. I would handle it carefully, professionally, and entirely in writing. I opened my lease and began drafting a second notice, one that left no room for misunderstanding. The next morning, I emailed the property manager, explained that Ethan was not on the lease, and asked how the vehicle should be handled if he failed to remove it. The reply gave me the exact process to follow. The second notice took nearly 2 hours to write because I wanted every sentence to be precise. By the time I finished, I was no longer writing as his ex-girlfriend. I was documenting a housing issue. I printed 2 copies. One would go on Ethan's bedroom door. The other went by certified mail the following morning. If this became a legal dispute, I wanted proof of every deadline and warning. The notice read, upon the termination of your occupancy on July 11th, any personal property remaining inside the apartment or garage after 5 p.m. on July 12th will be reported to property management and handled through the appropriate towing or storage process. This includes all vehicle parts, tools, and the unfinished restoration vehicle currently stored in the garage. Any remaining property will be reported to property management and removed by an authorized towing or storage company, with all lawful charges directed to you." There was nothing vague about it. I taped one copy to his bedroom door while he slept and left for work without waking him. Around lunchtime, my phone buzzed. Ethan calling. I let it ring. He tried again 30 seconds later, then a third time. Finally, a message appeared. "What the hell is this?" I replied. "Please read it carefully." That evening, he was pacing the living room when I came home, the notice crushed in one hand. "You can't be serious." "I am." "You'd actually have my car removed?" "If it's still here after the deadline." His face flushed. "You know what that car means to me." "I do. I've spent years working on it, and I'm giving you time to move it. You know I have nowhere else. You've had weeks to arrange something." "I've been trying." "Then keep trying." His frustration faltered. "Natalie, please." It was the first sincere plea I had heard from him since this began. He stepped closer. "I made a mistake. You were selfish." "I know. I don't think you understand how much." He dragged both hands through his hair. "I thought we'd get through this." "We did, just not together." "That's not what I meant." "I know. I thought we'd have one rough patch, then things would go back to normal." "There isn't a normal to go back to. I chose you. You came back after the other arrangement stopped working." His mouth tightened. "Why do you keep saying that?" "Because you haven't given me another explanation." "It wasn't like that." "Would you have asked to be exclusive again if she had been happy with you living here?" He turned toward the window. I waited. "I don't know," he admitted. That was the most honest answer he had given me. "Then I'm making the right decision." He faced me again. "Why are you acting like I'm some terrible person?" "I'm reacting to what you did. I still love you." "You love what this relationship made easy." "That's not fair." "You treated everything we built as permanent, even while treating me as optional." "I did love you." "Then why did you go looking elsewhere before letting me go?" He sat heavily on the couch and pressed his palms together. After a while, he said, "I don't have enough money to rent a garage." "I know. Storage units big enough for the Mustang cost a fortune." "I'm sure they do. You know I can't afford that." "You should have considered what leaving this relationship would actually cost." He gave a hollow laugh. "So that's it?" "Yes." "No compromise?" "I gave you 30 days. He had no answer. The following week was quieter. Ethan stopped trying to convince me directly and focused on convincing everyone else. Mutual friends began asking strange questions. "Did you really threaten to ruin his life?" "Is it true you're taking his car?" "He says you're punishing him." My response never changed. I gave him 30 days to move out. Gradually, the questions shifted. "Wait, he was already dating other women before he told you? He expected to keep living there? He thought you'd wait?" One by one, the calls stopped. Ethan's version could not survive once people heard the full timeline. Even Marcus sent me a message. "I didn't know everything." I replied, "I know." A few days later, I came home unexpectedly early and found the garage door open. Ethan sat beside the Mustang with the hood removed and engine parts spread around him. He wasn't working. His hands rested loosely between his knees. "Do you think I'm a bad person?" he asked without turning. I leaned against the doorframe. "I think you believe someone else would always clean up whatever you broke." He let out a breath. "I never thought it would end like this." "You thought I'd still be here." "I guess I did." The garage was filled with tools, labeled boxes, and components he had collected over 2 years. The Mustang had occupied nearly every weekend of our relationship. "The car isn't the only thing you're losing," I said. He frowned. "What do you mean?" "You can eventually find another place to work on it." "It'll be expensive." "Yes." "And us?" "That's over." His attention dropped to the concrete floor. He finally understood that I wasn't threatening to leave. I had already left the relationship emotionally. He had made the choice weeks earlier. Only now was he beginning to understand its price. As July 11th approached, the arguments faded. Cardboard boxes appeared against the living room wall, closets emptied, drawers stayed open. Ethan was no longer planning how to change my mind. He was planning how to leave. July 11th arrived without an argument. That surprised me. For weeks, Ethan had fought every deadline, challenged every decision, and tried every emotional appeal he could think of. Then he stopped fighting. He hadn't accepted my decision, but he seemed to understand that he could no longer change it. I woke that Friday to cardboard scraping across the hardwood floor. When I entered the living room, moving boxes lined the walls. Some were sealed. Others sat half open with clothes spilling over the sides. Ethan knelt beside one of them, wrapping dishes in newspaper. Eventually, he said, "I rented a storage unit." "For the apartment?" "For most of my stuff." He tucked another plate into the box. "I still haven't figured out the Mustang." Finding an apartment had been difficult enough. Finding affordable space for a half-disassembled restoration project in the middle of summer was another matter. "I hope you do." He searched my face as if waiting for me to solve it. I didn't. Throughout the day, he made trip after trip downstairs. He carried out furniture, clothes, boxes, his television, the gaming console that had dominated one corner of my living room, and finally the dining chair he always called his spot. With every load, the apartment felt less crowded. Around 3, his parents arrived. His mother stepped inside first. Linda Brooks had always been polite to me until recently. Now she seemed tired more than angry. Natalie. Linda? His father gave me a brief nod and picked up a box. Neither argued. Neither asked me to reconsider. Perhaps Ethan had finally admitted more of the truth, or perhaps they had simply run out of ways to defend him. I stayed in my office while they worked. By late afternoon, Ethan knocked on the door. I'm finished. The shelves were empty. The television stand was gone. His shoes no longer crowded the entryway. Only the garage remained. I'll come back tomorrow morning for the car, he said. You have until 5 tomorrow afternoon. After that, the removal process starts. I know. He reached into his pocket and placed my spare key on the kitchen island. The metal clicked against the stone. I never wanted this. I believe you. A flicker of hope crossed his face. But you chose what brought us here. It disappeared. I'm sorry. This time the apology sounded sincere. It had also arrived only after the consequences reached him. I hope one day you're sorry for what you did to me, not just for what happened to you. His shoulders sank. I guess I deserve that. We didn't hug. There were no tears. Some endings are too exhausted for dramatic goodbyes. He lifted the final box and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he turned. I really did love you. I think you love the life we built. He absorbed that without arguing, then left. I locked the door behind him. The apartment was finally mine again. That evening, I ordered takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant, the one Ethan always complained was too spicy. I ate sitting cross-legged on the living room floor because so much furniture had been moved. Rain tapped against the windows. No one was sulking in another room. No one was waiting for me to fix his mood. I slept better than I had in months. Saturday morning arrived bright and warm. At 9, I opened the garage door. The Mustang was exactly where Ethan had left it. Its hood leaned against the wall. The engine remained partially disassembled. Shelves still held tools, labeled containers, and carefully organized replacement parts. At 10:30, my phone rang. I'm running behind, Ethan said. How far behind? I don't know. What happened? The trailer I rented fell through. So what's your plan? I'm trying to borrow another one. You have until 5. I know, I'll make it. He called again around 1, then at 3. No one has a truck. The rental company canceled. My friend backed out. I just need more time. You've known the deadline for over a month. At 4:35, the garage remained unchanged. At 4:48, Ethan's pickup pulled into the driveway. He jumped out alone. No trailer, no equipment, no plan. Please, he said as he hurried toward me. I need one more weekend. You've had 31 days. I know, I'll figure it out. You were supposed to have done that already. His attention shifted toward the Mustang. I can't lose this. I'm not stopping you from taking it. I'll pay rent for the garage. It's no longer available. Double rent. This isn't about money. I'll sign anything. The decision was made weeks ago. The confidence had drained out of him. There was no argument left, only panic. At 5, I checked the time. Earlier that week, the property manager had confirmed in writing that an unauthorized vehicle left in my assigned garage after the deadline could be removed by Premier Vehicle Recovery, their approved towing company. The deadline has passed. You'd really do it? I told you I would. You can't. I can. His voice cracked. Natalie, please. I took out my phone and opened the contact I had saved 3 weeks earlier. The towing company answered on the second ring. Good afternoon, Premier Vehicle Recovery. Hello, I'm calling to schedule the removal we discussed. Ethan's face went pale. The dispatcher confirmed my address and estimated 45 minutes. When I ended the call, Ethan remained where he was. You actually called them? Yes. He faced the Mustang, lowered his head, and walked back to his truck. I watched him drive away. 42 minutes later, the tow truck arrived. 2 uniformed operators stepped out. I handed them copies of the notices and directed them toward the garage. One reviewed the paperwork. Everything looks in order. Steel ramps unfolded. Chains clicked into place. Hydraulic winches pulled the unfinished Mustang onto the flatbed. There was no confrontation. Just paperwork, machinery, and a deadline Ethan had ignored. When the truck disappeared around the corner, I remained in the empty garage. Without the Mustang, I could finally see how much space had been there all along. For nearly 2 years, that room had revolved around Ethan's dream. Now it belonged to my home again. The phone rang about an hour after the tow truck left. Ethan. The moment I answered, he exploded. You actually had my car towed. His voice was so loud I pulled the phone away from my ear. It's going to cost thousands to get it back. Where did they take it? The company has your contact information. They'll tell you. You did this to hurt me. No. You wanted revenge. I enforced the deadline. You knew I couldn't move it. You knew when it had to be gone. You could have given me another week. I could have. But you didn't. No. His breathing was ragged. I lost everything. I took in the empty hallway, the rearranged living room, and the open door to the garage. You lost access to things you assumed would always be available. Before he answered, Emily's voice burst through the speaker. Natalie! She was shouting from somewhere beside him. How could you do this? I gave him written notice. He's devastated. So was I. You're acting like a monster. I asked him to take responsibility for his property. You ruined his dream. I stopped providing free space for it. You're unbelievably vindictive. Consequences aren't revenge. I ended the call and blocked Ethan's number. Then Emily's. A minute later, Linda called. I blocked her too. After weeks of arguments, messages, and accusations, my phone finally stopped. Over the next several days, I heard pieces of what happened through mutual friends. The towing bill was worse than Ethan expected. Because the Mustang wasn't drivable, recovering it required specialized equipment. Then came storage fees, administrative charges, and transport costs. He had to borrow money from his parents to release the car. Afterward, he still had nowhere to put it. Eventually, he rented an aging storage unit nearly 40 minutes outside the city. It was expensive, poorly insulated, and too far away to visit after work. The project that had consumed nearly every weekend was covered with a gray tarp. Weeks of momentum disappeared. One afternoon, Marcus called. I owe you an apology. You don't owe me anything. I believed Ethan. I know. He left out a lot. I figured. Marcus cleared his throat. I honestly thought you kicked him out because you were dating someone else. That made his story easier. He never mentioned he had already started seeing other women before talking to you. I'm sure he didn't. I should have asked more questions. Probably. We ended the call without drama. Marcus hadn't defended what Ethan actually did. He had defended the version Ethan told him. About 3 weeks later, one of my friends sent me a screenshot. You need to see this. It was Ethan's new dating profile. The first photograph showed him leaning against his truck. The second featured the Mustang from before it had been dismantled. His bio read, recently got out of a relationship with someone who punished me for being honest. Looking for someone loyal who doesn't believe in revenge. I read it twice. Even then, he could not admit what had happened. He wasn't single because he had been honest. He was single because the honesty came after the betrayal. I deleted the screenshot. I no longer needed reminders. Life became quieter after that. I repainted the living room deep forest green, the color Ethan had always said would make the apartment feel too dark. When the painters finished, sunlight poured through the windows and warmed the walls. I bought a new bookshelf, added plants, and moved the furniture into an arrangement that no longer revolved around his gaming setup. The changes were small, but each one made the apartment feel more like mine. Daniel became a regular part of my life. Nothing moved quickly. There were no dramatic promises or declarations. Just dinners, weekend hikes, coffee after work, and conversations that didn't feel like negotiations. One Saturday, we returned to the mountain from my dating profile. At the summit, Daniel smiled. So this is the famous hike. You recognized it? I studied your pictures before asking you out. You admit that? Proudly. He had packed too much water, forgotten sunscreen, and complained good-naturedly about a blister for the final mile. We stood overlooking green hills stretching toward the horizon. Can I ask you something? He said. Sure. Do you ever regret letting him go? I thought about the Wednesday night Ethan turned off the television, the certainty in his voice when he said he wanted to see other people, the way he expected me to wait while he decided whether someone else might make him happier. I remembered the calls, the intervention in my living room, and his family insisting that his choices were somehow mine to manage. No, Daniel waited. I don't regret losing him. What do you regret? How long it took me to realize I deserved better. He reached for my hand simply because he wanted to hold it, not because he thought I needed rescuing. It has been almost 2 months now. The spare room has become a reading room. The garage is empty. Sometimes I still expect to hear Ethan's video games from the living room, then remember he no longer lives here. According to mutual friends, he is still staying in Emily's guest room while trying to recover financially. The Mustang remains in the storage unit. He visits less often because every trip reminds him how much the project now costs. Maybe he will finish restoring it one day. I hope he does. I don't owe him kindness. I simply no longer carry enough anger to wish failure on him. Looking back, the Mustang was never the real issue. The real change happened the moment I stopped protecting someone who had already stopped protecting our relationship. Ethan believed freedom meant he could explore another life while keeping this one waiting for him. It didn't. When he chose to live without me, he also chose to live without everything I had been providing. He had been afraid of waking up one day with regrets. Now he has all the space he asked for. As for me, I didn't lose my home. I found it again.